We had a viewer write in last week, and her question was, how can you teach an Asperger's 15-year-old girl about talking to strangers and age-appropriate dating? And as I said before the break, this is an area that is particularly scary. Anytime we're talking about dating and those kinds of issues, whew, and I can't even imagine, there's a whole host of things to worry about with boys, but there's another host of things to worry about with girls. And I want to preface this by saying that we can never give child-specific or teenager-specific, as the case would be, advice, because we can't know everything about what the skill level is. So we were going to speak in generalities, but there are some generalities and some suggestions of things that you might consider when this is what you're talking about. My eyes get big because it's scary.
I know. Well, they're kind of two different things. There's the talking to strangers, and then there's the dating thing. I mean, they sort of go together. Yeah. Because usually when you start dating someone, you don't know them very well. Yeah. They're not always someone that familiar to you. But with the strangers thing, I mean, I guess the first thing to do is to try and establish whether your kid can distinguish between a stranger and someone they know. Okay. And then what the types of thing that we can do is sort of draw like a visual of circles. Okay. And you have the child in the middle, and then you have the immediate family around the outside, and then you have like friends, and then you have acquaintances, and then you have strangers, and trying to get your child to place different people in the different areas to see if you can see if she can distinguish between who's a stranger and who's not. So that's the first step, and I would make sure there's that.
I just want to interrupt you for 1 second. I would guess that we can absolutely do this with a 15-year-old, but we could do this with a much younger child. So we're working towards knowing that eventually they are going to be 15.
Absolutely. So the first thing your child needs to be able to do is to know whether the person's familiar or not. Okay. And then once they're able to do that, then we work on certain rules, establishing certain rules for the different circles of people.
Nice.
And I mean, you can do all sorts of things. I really think it's helpful to have the visuals and to draw them out rather than just have a conversation, because our kids tend to have a hard time with retaining just oral information, and having it on a piece of paper or something is really helpful. And you can color code them and stuff like that, and then have different rules. So you're going to want to have certain rules for strangers. Like if a person is a stranger, then I can say hi to them, but I shouldn't. You know, if it's in school, then I might say hi to them. But if it's out in the community, I'm not going to talk to them. Whatever you decide your rules are,
and they're going to be different with different ages and different kids.
Exactly.
But for instance, I can say hi to a stranger, but I can't walk away with them.
Right, exactly. So you're going to want to establish the rules that you want to put in place for your kid that are appropriate for their age. And that might also include certain things about, like, if I don't feel safe, then this is what I should do. Right. Like whether that's call mom, call 911, whatever you want to put in place. Or if someone's walking close to me, I could cross the street. Like just certain strategies for your child. So we talked a little bit in the break about maybe having your child like have a decision tree, and I've seen some quite cool ones on the iPad, like little apps that people have made with a little visual, like what I should do. Because sometimes our kids have a difficulty with making a decision in the moment. So in this way, you can have like, is it a stranger? Yes or no. It's a stranger. Yes. You know, and like kind of like what to do, don't talk to them, or walk away, or whatever your decision tree might be, or I don't feel safe. You can practice this with your kid. You know, I don't feel safe. What do? I can call 911. I can cross the street. I can do these things. And I mean, obviously, in a split moment, you might be thinking, oh, I can't have my child thinking and going through this decision tree. They need to just make that decision. But this is really helpful for practicing. Yeah, we've practiced a fire drill by doing these kinds of things, so why not practice this kind of thing? Exactly, and then you can do the same types of things for dating as well, like having certain rules in a little decision tree, and like helping your child identify different feelings. So like feelings towards a friend versus somebody I have a romantic interest in, and then if I have a romantic interest in this person, like how to make an appropriate decision and what can I do. I really like this person. These are things I can do. I can tell them I like them, or I can call them, or I can text them, or I can ask them if they want to go to the movies, and then you can have like little sort of options for what to do.
Fascinating. And you know what I also hear in doing this, what the benefit of this is that when you set up the rule and say, well, you know, you're not allowed to leave with somebody, you're not allowed to take food from somebody, that I can imagine that then we can teach the other side of it too. And if the person doesn't accept that, they should also know that there are rules and that they should not behave this way. And if they're not behaving the way they should, and you're starting to feel funny about it, that you should be feeling funny about it.
Exactly.
So that they also start to gauge whether somebody's trying to take advantage of them.
Right. So,
really important.
And then, of course, there's other things that go along with that, like learning how to read body language, or learning personal space, like boundaries in terms of when someone's too close. You know, it's okay for my mom to be this close to me, but it's not okay for a stranger to be this close to me. So I think boundaries is really important.
Yes.
And how just helping our kids identify when they're in a situation that's not okay.
Yes.
I think those are the key things.
And especially now with social networking the way that it is. You know, my son for the first time the other day asked if he could be on Facebook. And I went, you know, I haven't had to do, but he does interact with people sometimes in a video game, and we have very specific rules about that and about what he's allowed to say to them, what they're allowed to say to him, and what he's to do if ever, you know, any of those lines are crossed. But I imagine that as they get into teenage years, and that there needs to be whole sets of rules about what we say or do and allow to be said to us on Facebook and on Twitter and Instagram and all these other things that they have that I don't completely get. Because I know that a lot of the dating seems to generate from the internet sites, but we can keep those rules going for those things as well.
Yeah, and you know, we have taught we do teach these types of things, and we do work with kids on these types of problems from all ages, of like really young kids with strangers up to teens, and we can kids are good at it, like they can learn these things. I think it's just about sitting down with them, providing the visual supports and helping them make decisions, and using the decision trees and the rules and things like that, and keeping everything very simple.
Fascinating. Great advice. I love this idea of the circles and having the different rules for each rung in the circle.
It can seem really overwhelming because dating is like a massive umbrella for all sorts of things.
Yes, for everyone.
So it's about breaking it down and identifying what are the skills that I need to teach my child to be able to navigate this system. So whether it's like reading body language, identifying my feelings, different types of feelings for different relationships, identifying who's a stranger versus who's not, and boundaries, and like what I can say, what I can do, you know, all those types of things. There's a lot of things, but they're all teachable whenever you approach them one at a time.
And I'm also struck by the fact that there are many neurotypical kids who could benefit from these same lessons.
Absolutely.
Really awesome.